one and let's see if this works.
All right, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and get started, okay?
You could talk, but we're, oh, there we go. I think we are now live on, I deleted the other one and let's see. Yep, we're live on YouTube now. We can go ahead and start.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Well, first off, welcome to a special City Council meeting of June 17th, 2020. We apologize for kind of a late start. We had a little technical difficulties. We wanted to make sure that we would have everybody on board to be able to watch this evening. So I apologize for our late start, but it looks like we're doing okay. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Prior to roll call, the city attorney will make an announcement regarding the teleconferencing of this meeting.
Thank you. As you know, the governor issued Executive Order N-25-20 to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 and allow public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference. The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in the governor's order. And now, Madam Clerk, please conduct roll call, and I'll ask the mayor to recognize me one more time afterward to confirm certain matters for the record.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Alone.
Here.
Councilmember Perkins.
Here.
Vice Mayor Zafar.
Here.
And Mayor Clarkson.
Here.
Thank
Martin,
you.
go ahead.
Thank you. I now would like to verify three things. One, that all members of the council can hear me well. Two, that all members of the council have been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call. And three, that each council member believes that all persons representing themselves to be a council member are in fact council members.
Yes.
Seeing 5 affirmative responses, I will turn it back over to the mayor with the reminder that any votes taken during this meeting must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 2, public comment.
Public comment. We have only one item on the agenda. Residents who wish to make comments have a choice to make. They can make a public comment at the start before the staff presentation on the item, or they can wait and make their comments after the staff presentation. I like to give people that choice in case they want to say something now and need to go somewhere else and can't stay for the end. So I want to give them that opportunity. Also, as a courtesy, we're going to have a little yellow card that comes up at about 20 or 30 seconds before your 3 minutes up, and then a red card if you exceed your 3 minutes as a courtesy and as a reminder. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody who would like to speak before the item comes up?
If you would like to speak before the item, please use the raise your hand button at this time or *9 on your telephone.
And if you speak before the item, you wouldn't get an opportunity to do it again. You get one chance before or one chance after the staff presentation. Madam Clerk, has anybody raised their hand for public comment prior to presentation?
We have no request to speak.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll save the written comments also until after the staff presentation and do it all at one time, if that's okay. Council, seeing no objections, we will then close the public comment. Madam Clerk, next item.
Someone did just raise their hand prior to close.
Let's let him do it. Thank you.
Jackie Guzzo.
Muted.
Jackie, you're on mute still.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jackie Guzzo, and I'm president of an organization which helps parents, families, and friends of LGBTQ+ individuals who come out to them. Why? Because my own son came out to me right after he moved away to college that his partner was a person of the same sex. Then 2 years later, he came out again as a transgender man. After an initial ugly 48 hours where we considered cutting him off to get him out of that liberal college, which did this to him, his dad and I immediately reached out to PFLAG because we didn't know what that meant or how to be the best parents we could possibly be. Good move. Instead of God knows what would have befallen him, he graduated magna cum laude and is going to law school. The details about how to fly commemorative flags shouldn't stop the Philly Pride flag with black and brown stripes to draw attention to the issues of people of color within the LGBTQ community from being flown underneath the city flag. We have many voices who wanted to speak this evening, but we wanted to be sure to allow you time to deliberate and decide. We sent a letter in with close to 200 signatures of residents and allies of LGBTQ plus community of San Ramon in support of flying the Philly Pride flag below the city's flag at City Hall to allow you that time. To that end, I have some answers for you. Research has shown cities which have been flying the Pride flag for years have not been overrun by an onslaught of other flag requests. With that in mind, leave flexibility in the hands of council. So what standards should be used? Deal with it when it comes up and vote. Multiple requests for the same time frame? Leave it up to a vote of the majority to divide the time. How many flags at the same time? Deal with it when it comes up with a cap at 4 per month. Taxpayer dollars? Don't give up control of what flag size or style is ultimately flown. The city needs to continue to order flags. Which flagpole or poles? Deal with it when it comes up and vote. Tonight's request for the Philly Pride flag should be flown at a minimum at City Hall in addition to the marquee. A simple majority versus 4/5? Simple majority. It encourages support of the minority voices. Where? Below the city flag. Limitations on the flagpole? How to use 2 snap hooks, measure distance between grommets, slip a loop of rope through the eye of the snap hook, put the loop over the top of the snap hook, and draw rope tight. How long? No less than 1 week, no more than 1 month. Half mast? Yes, so it isn't higher than the city, state, or federal flag. My kid came out after he left home. He had to hide and be strong all on his own, which he did. Many LGBTQ kids aren't nearly as strong and simply won't be able to thrive nearly as well without the love, support, and acceptance of their parents. Please, on behalf of the kids, citizens, employees, and business owners who are members of the LGBTQ plus community, and all of us PFLAG parents, family, and friends of LGBTQ plus loved ones, we want you to fly the Philly Pride flag under the city's flag at City Hall as a beacon for all of us, that we will all be all right. Thank you.
Jackie, thank you. Madam Clerk, has anybody else raised their hand?
No, that was the only request.
Okay, I'll go ahead now and close the public comment. Next item.
Item 3, new business. 3.1, consider use of city flagpoles and display of flag policy.
Steve, you're on mute. Go right
There we
ahead.
go. Sorry
All
about
right.
that. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to share my screen. We have a PowerPoint presentation to walk us through the dual policies that we put in the staff report, and to go over, let me just adjust something here, and to go over some of the policy questions that we have for council. All right. Let me just adjust one thing here. Okay, there we go. So an overview, the city displays the United States flag, the state of California flag, and the flag of the city of San Ramon at City Hall. The POW MIA flag and the Blue Star Mom flag are flown at Memorial Park. And the city currently does not have a policy governing the display of flags or the use of city flagpoles. That's why we're here today. Now, the next slide is important to the discussion today, and our city attorney, Martin License, will be going over the use of flags as speech.
Thank you, Stephen, and good evening, Mayor and Council. The display of the United States and California flags is mostly governed by state and federal law. There are federal and state laws governing the display of POW MIA flag and the Blue Star flag as well, which we do display also. The display of other commemorative flags, including the Pride flag, is generally left up to the discretion of the local jurisdictions. But because the display of flags is considered to be speech, in that flags convey some sort of message, they are also subject to First Amendment scrutiny. What that means for our purposes is that the city has to adopt a policy making clear that the flagpoles and the display of flags in general are not set up to be a public forum. This means they're not intended to serve as a forum for anyone other than the city government to communicate. The Supreme Court has adopted what is known as the government speech doctrine, which holds that the government may speak or express an opinion or a position on something without creating a public forum where others could demand the right to display a flag or otherwise use the forum in order to express their own opinions. So in a nutshell, when you have a public forum, you can't make content-based restrictions on speech. You can't prevent someone from communicating just because you don't like the message. But when the forum is reserved for government speech, then the government has the right to restrict what's communicated, even if it doesn't give both sides equal time. So what's the takeaway from all this? First of all, flying a flag is considered speech. It's not advisable for the city to create a public forum on its flagpoles or anywhere else where it might display a flag, because you want to preserve the right to communicate only what the city wants to communicate. But if the flagpole is used strictly for government speech, the council may express its own viewpoint on the flagpole, generally without regard for other points of view. So with that in mind, the policies that are before you treat any official display of commemorative flags as government speech and do not consider third-party requests for commemorative flag displays, and only allow the display of commemorative flags when the request is brought forth by the city council and not by a member of the public, and only after the full council has authorized the display as an expression of the council's official sentiments. So with those basic guidelines, the council has the discretion to adopt a policy that either 1, bans the official display of commemorative flags, 2, restricts the official display of commemorative flags to locations that do not include the city's flagpoles. That would be with council approval. Or 3, allows the display of commemorative flags on 1 or more of the flagpoles in front of City Hall, and also at the alternative locations. Again, this would be under separate city council approval. So with that, if there are no questions, I'm going to turn this back over to Stephen. He'll discuss the 2 alternative policies for tonight. And if the council is looking to adopt a policy tonight, I'll be happy to help you work through some of the questions that should be addressed in that policy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So moving on to the recommended action, tonight it's to consider a use of flagpoles and display of flags policy, and either adopt a resolution or provide additional direction. And we prepared 2 policies for consideration, one that we've labeled display of flags policy current, and the other display of flags policy commemorative. So the flag policy current, staff recommends the formal adoption of a display of flags policy that reflects the current practice of flag display in the city of San Ramon. This policy would allow for flagpoles to be used exclusively by the city. The current practice policy would mitigate conflicting requests by maintaining the existing flag display practice and would not give preference to any particular group over another. Under the current policy, commemorative flags may be displayed in a variety of alternative locations, and some of these locations can accommodate larger and more prominent flags than the flagpoles. Some of the display options that we are currently using and we could use in the future include the marquee in front of City Hall to display messages and digital flags, the City Hall rotunda windows to display commemorative flags, City Hall exterior lighting fixtures to display the commemorative flags, drape a flag from a mast arm of 1 or more light poles on Bollinger Road in front of City Hall, street light poles for commemorative banners, and the City Hall rotunda custom lighting displays. The next slides present what it may look like should you choose an alternative display. This simulation shows the pride flag hanging from the exterior rotunda lighting fixtures. The next slide would show what a banner would look like in front of City Hall. And the third slide would show it hanging from a lighting fixture. The second policy is the flag policy commemorative. And under this policy, the city shall display commemorative flags only if authorized by the city council as an expression of the city's official sentiments, as our city attorney outlined earlier. Requests to display a commemorative flag may only be made by a member of the San Ramon City Council. And in the policy, we're suggesting a duration of the display shall be no more than 31 consecutive days. But again, it's completely up to the council to set whatever rules in the policy they see fit. Some of the considerations that we've outlined and that you should consider addressing in the policy, should you choose to adopt it. What standards should the city council use to determine the appropriateness of a request? How should the city council handle multiple requests with overlapping timeframes? How many flags should be displayed at the same time? Who is responsible for ordering the flag and ensuring the correct representation? On which city flagpoles should a flag fly? And how many city flagpoles on how many city flagpoles should a flag fly? Also, should a majority or a supermajority of the council be required to approve the flying of a commemorative flag? If commemorative flags are allowed, then the flag will be flown below or in place of the City of San Ramon flag. How long will a commemorative flag be flown? Policies from other cities range from 24 hours to 1 month. And should the policy include protocols for flying at half-mast for local commemorations to supplement the current protocols under state and federal regulations? And finally, other notes, the city has received 3 requests from the public to fly commemorative flags at City Hall. The Pride flag, the Philly Pride flag, and the Black Lives Matter flag. The council may elect to consider one or all of these flags for display. Poles in front of City Hall are not equipped to fly more than one single flag at this time. And during the interim period, before any adopted policy takes effect, the council may, by minute order, elect to display one or more of the flags on city flagpoles or in one or more locations listed previously. And with that, I know I went over a lot in a short period of time, opening up for council questions and comments at this time. And I will stop screen sharing and I can go back to the presentation should anybody need to refer to it.
Great. Steve, thank you very much. I'd like to find out if we can hear from the public first before your questions. Does anybody object to us going to public comment first? I'd like to hear what the public has to say. I think there's consensus there. Madam Clerk, do we have?
Excuse me, Bill, just
sure, Phil.
Just so the public, I have every intention of adopting some sort of commemorative flag thing here tonight. I have every intention of making a motion to display the Pride flag. I have every intention of, until such time as the San Ramon flag, the flagpole can be equipped for 2 flags, to take down the San Ramon flag and put whatever flags we decide up. So I just want to make sure that and I really appreciated Jackie Guzzo's comment that she wanted us to deliberate. I think that's we have heard from the public. We'll hear more, but we want to deliberate. We went through this with the cemetery a number of years ago, and it's like we need to deliberate. And so I want to I want to hear the public, but I want to cut to deliberating at some point here relatively soon. And then the public can, those who need to comment can comment either before or after, but I don't want to get caught up in a massive 3-hour public comment thing. That's not going to do anybody any good, really. And so I'm done, Bill. Thank you.
Okay. How many written public comments do we have, Christina?
I've received 7 written comments.
Good. And we'll take those second. So how many people have raised or asked for, go ahead and open public comment for this discussion.
We have 1 request to speak right now. Courtney Carlson.
Thank you. Hello, Courtney.
Hi, folks. Hope you
Hello.
all. I definitely acknowledge that you all need time to deliberate. I don't think I'll end up speaking for 3 minutes. I just wanted to put my 2 cents out there that, one, I appreciate that you mentioned that you are intending on approving that we're able to fly a combination of flags or whatever flags are approved. I think if I can just give voice to the frustration that maybe some other folks were feeling without necessarily speaking for them. the moment we are having now and the moment we've been living in, the context we have culturally has been oftentimes systemic oppression and folks telling us to wait, like telling people to wait until they can have their rights or to have a symbol or to, get to a certain place that they want to be. And by no means am I trying to equate that to what this policy is, but I do want that context to be known for why people are so frustrated and really invalidated by that. And I say that just because I had to go away to college and be there for 2 years to even learn who Marsha P. Johnson was. And if you don't know who she was, that alone says a lot about what our education system has erased and what oppression, how that lives out. So I just encourage you all, I would appreciate it just because I don't personally have the context. If you could address why this waited from March, because I only just started attending these meetings, that would be helpful for me. But I also would encourage you to continue these conversations past symbols of support, because they are incredibly important. They make a huge difference. But I can guarantee you that San Ramon is not at the forefront of making queer folks feel safe. And I would love to see us get to that point. And I think there are a lot of people in San Ramon who are really looking for that and are motivated to get there. So that's my ask of you all is, I appreciate what you're working on now. Please continue doing that past this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Anybody else raise their hand, Christina?
No, that was the only request to speak.
Okay, I'll close the verbal public comment and we'll move into the written public comment. I'll allow you to read those if you might.
Mayor, as a point of consideration, if we go through that, I'm going to miss the meeting. And I completely agree with Phil. I wish you would reconsider and let those of us that want to speak, at least on the councils, of people get an idea. I had 2 hours of meetings this morning on exactly the same thing. And I think we need to speak. And I think that's what Phil was saying. We need to speak now. And then people can, if they want to listen to hear what we have to say and come down here and riot, we're here.
Yeah, I understand that, Dave. And my only concern is that there are at least 7 people who would like to share their opinion. We're not sure what that opinion is. And if we say to them that we've made up our minds before the public's had an opportunity to share their thoughts, that is a little bit disrespectful. So I'm just sharing with you. I'll go by.
Well, tell me what they say tomorrow, because I got a 6 o'clock meeting and I've told you.
Can we not get caught up in process here? They wrote in, we can talk. We don't have to make a vote. We could hear what they have to say. Let's talk about this. That is not some sort of violation of anything.
Martin, I'll look to you for some
heretofore, we
direction.
didn't even read written comments, anything other than into the record. So I don't want to get caught up in process here. I want to hear what my fellow council members have to say, because we're going to make this decision. I know that the public has the right to say things, and I also know that I share Courtney's frustration on why we waited so long. So we can reopen to, and these written comments, we can hear them before we vote. I want to hear what my fellow council members have to say. I haven't even seen you all for 3 months.
I'll just
And I'm
chime in
sick of
that-
it.
That as long as we have, as long as we hear about these written comments, then it doesn't matter where in the process that we do it, as long as it's before the.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay, so before any votes are taken, we have to hear from the public. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, does anybody want to say anything? Any
Yeah, I do.
questions?
I got my hand up.
I don't see your hand up, Dave.
It's in the blue hand on Ray's panelist. I'm sorry, yours is off. Well, I'll get off of the process too, because I think Phil said a lot of things that I was thinking. And honestly, I think you have or suggested a major component on how we get through this with the diversity group. But that's from here forward. And I think it's diversity, inclusion, and equity. It's going to have to be major points going through this on other committees. It's not something people aren't doing. It's something people are doing. And there's the questions that we had in the staff report, where to do a flag, what to do. I made a suggestion of a separate garden, the swale out front with a flag. And someone that spoke tonight without being too, I just narrowed it to two, said that's a cop-out. People that I talked to said that's a cop-out. But as we go forward, we need to really address this, because it isn't just the LGBTQ flag. It's a lot of things going on, and we're seeing it. So I would suggest within your diversity group that you very seriously ask Abram Wilson to join it, because this isn't just white and people of color. The African-American community, will speak volumes on this. And if they're not fully represented, we're going to do a lot of this for nothing. I think that we're headed in the same direction with a lot of things on cultural events. Hansama wants to do something. We had Daughters of the American Revolution. It's not the same as LGBTQ, but it's up there. Byron used to have the Greeks come in. We had CARE wanted to come in a year ago. And we're going to have to address how we handle these things. That's going forward. But for right now, I honestly believe that tonight, I don't care if you have to do it with duct tape, you put up underneath the San Ramon flag, the Philly Pride flag for the rest of the month. The time for talk is over. People want justice. They want to see action. And I don't think it adds anything to what people want that are LGBTQ. But surprise, I'm not LGBTQ. So how do I know if I don't put myself in their shoes? And I'm listening to people that are, and they're telling me this is important. So I'm saying do it. Direction to staff with the simple direction beyond that, that if this turns into something political, that it comes down. This is not about political. This is about how a group of people, residents in our city feel. And I think we're following the direction they want us to take. What's the definition of political? Defund the police. I will not support that action at all, and there's no place for that in what we're trying to do tonight. It wasn't even mentioned in what Jackie talked about. But I think people are starting to get the message that you can't just do words. They want to see action.
Thank you, Dave. Looking for Dave, Sabina or Scott. Any comments? Sabina, I see your hand. You're on mute. There you go.
I was trying to see if Phil wanted to speak. I know he's been wanting to speak. I will just say that, I just wanted to say I've been talking about the flag for a year and a half. I've been bringing it up several times and very aware that, this was going to come up. It's taken us some time as a council to look at it. It's taken us some time as a county to look at what we have to do. But again, I am very much in favor that, of making sure that we're displaying not just the Pride flag, but really the Philly flag, because Black Lives Matter and the Pride flag and basically the Philly flag encompasses both the Black Lives Matters, you're the movement, because it is also people of color. So the black and the brown in the Philly flag represents people of color of LGBTQ that have also suffered and basically have also, not been able to be recognized. What always breaks my heart is listening to people, and Jackie is one story, but I've heard multiple parents talk about how their kids had to leave the Bay Area, San Ramon or Danville, or our communities to then come back and let anybody know, their friends know even, right? So we are at a time where when we are talking about being inclusive, when we're talking about embracing our citizens, people that live in San Ramon, we are such a diverse fabric. And so this flag to me just doesn't represent the LGBTQ community, the Black community, the brown community, but all the different nationalities that have come together now to call San Ramon home. And I don't think nobody is going to be against representing and standing together. Because guess what? When you stand up for each other, they will stand up for you when you need them as well. And I would, very much be in favor of that we fly the flag under the San Ramon flag, And if we can't do that technically, then fly the Philly flag, because the Philly Pride flag, because we've already lost 17 days in this month. And so we have a short period of time that we can show the citizens of San Ramon and people of LGBTQ community, the Black community, the brown community, everybody, that we are inclusive. I think if anybody is as progressive in this, in the Tri-Valley, San Ramon has the community, and San Ramon is the place. So we can, too bad we weren't the leaders in this, but I think we can, we probably have the most beautiful city hall, and I think it would be a beautiful display of, basically strength, and a beautiful display of standing up with the LGBTQ and the Black and the brown community here in San Ramon. So I appreciate everything everybody said, and I'm fully, on board that we should fly the flag tonight. I would love to have a ceremony if we can, to actually celebrate it.
Thank you, Sabina. Scott.
Before we get into actually deciding on flying a particular flag, I think it's important that we focus for just a moment on the policy and where we're going to go with the policy. And a couple of things that kind of, I think, need to be said somewhere in the policy is some exclusions, some types of flags that we're not going to fly. And one of them is we should not be flying a flag that represents a for-profit organization. Companies are who they are. We don't need to be the government picking and choosing for-profit companies to display their flag. A second group, we should not be displaying national flags. There's on the order of roughly 200 countries in the world, and I don't see it as appropriate that we display the flag of a different country on our flagpoles. It was briefly mentioned that political organizations, we should not be flying flags that promote a particular political viewpoint or a political organization or an organization that directly endorses candidates. So I'd like to see those things included in the policy. But going forward, once we adopt a policy, I'm more than supportive of discussing a particular flag later this evening. That's all.
Dave, you had your hand up. You're on mute, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. There's one thing I left out. I believe that you're hearing from 3 people to run up the Philly Pride flag tonight. I also believe that when that comes down in June, that there should be a moratorium until this diversity, equity, and inclusion group has finished their study of what we should do as a policy. I don't think we need to change the policy tonight. We need to put up the Philly flag and let people tell us about what's going on and how it can be better, and come up with a policy at that time. So the policy that's in place now is good for now until we get what is coming from this group. But that one exception is to run that flag tonight, because if we don't, we're all talk, and that is not what this council wants to send out.
Phil.
First of all, I want to thank Dave for mentioning a special meeting at the last council meeting. We got caught up in things not being agendized and that sort of a thing, which is just fortunately or unfortunately the way government works to a certain extent. So I want to thank him for that. I also would, it's not a bad idea to have, to hear from this committee and all that, and do what Dave said. I don't frankly have a problem with that. It also, religious organizations shouldn't be able to fly their flag. We're not putting the papal flag up there, and as much as I'd like to put the Irish flag up on St. Paddy's Day, that's not a good idea either. And I'm not trying to trivialize anything, but you know, this isn't all just heat. And it's also, you know, there is an evolution in all this. So a couple of things. I just think, you know, in the future, simple majority can speak for the city government. That makes sense to me. The only place where we have a super majority is for general plan things, and that was something voted by the public to do. I like the idea of the Philly Pride flag because it is extremely inclusive, and it's also, you know, how I learned about civil rights was really three people. It was Martin Luther King. It was a guy named Dr. Bill Knox, who was one of my dad's best friends at Kodak, who was one of the founders of the Urban League. And it was Father Hesburgh at Notre Dame. And there's a famous story of in 1962 or 63, Martin Luther King was coming to Chicago, and the president, it was either, I believe, of Loyola or DePaul, was supposed to be at an event, and the guy bailed out. And King's organization called Father Hesburgh. He said, "What time do you want me to be there?" Drove to Chicago, and there's a very famous picture of him and King together. And where we have failed in this, in my view, is what part of what Courtney said is how long it took us to take action. And we collectively need to own that, in my view. But I think it's also something, you know, sometimes it's lead, sometimes it's follow, and sometimes it's get out of the way. And this is a circumstance where thankfully the public has come out and gotten ahead of us in some respects and expressed themselves, and I support that. It's also the organization, you know, Kaiser Permanente has a huge investment in the transgender community and transitioning patients. I deal with them all the time in our IVF program. So, you know, getting exposed to more of the world is an important element for everybody. And so, you know, I think that a couple of other things, just Dave was talking about duct tape, but, you know, Old Glory is Old Glory. You know, people have died for that flag. California flag is the California flag. Nobody's died for the San Ramon flag, right? I mean, that's sort of my, that's sort of what, you know, it's a good place to put the flag until you can fly two flags on it. And then in the future, I just think it's a great statement to put it in place of until the end of the month. I don't want the public works staff to have to scramble around. I just want to do what's simple. And simple and the right thing to do. It's simple to get in a car and drive somewhere and make a statement. And we need to do something like that. We can do that. So simple majority. I don't have a problem per se waiting, but I'm curious on a full rework of a policy. If the other members of the council think that makes sense, rather than necessarily making this up sort of on the fly. So that's those are my and also just, you know, there's been a lot of focus on kids coming out, and my daughters went to school here. Some kids did feel comfortable coming out, and some even as adults haven't. And it was an individual decision. And they certainly were, from what the feedback I get from my kids over time, they were made very welcome to come out, at least amongst their friends and certainly the school district and such. There's a lot more to it than that. But Jackie's point about seeing something and it giving people courage, I agree with that. So those are my points.
Thank you, Phil. I want to follow on and reinforce the comments you have made and also that Scott have made. I think it's important and maybe repetitious, but we need to have a policy in place because it should not be a catch as catch can. I think we all agree. We don't want to have the Irish flag up.
I want to speak to that, Mayor, whenever you're done. I want to, on that particular comment, I had something I wanted to say.
Okay. I think we all agree that we don't want to have religious flags go up, separation of church and state. I think we all agree we don't want to have for-profit firms. I think that would be a gift of public funds to allow corporations to somehow rent or put space up there. The one I think we have to wrestle with a little bit is the political flags, and that do we want to have a flag that goes up that supports and endorses and funds candidates who run for office? And I don't see that the case here with the rainbow flag, but my concern is, do we want to have or allow partisan political flags to go in front of City Hall? Remember, there was a very progressive movement back in 1910, 1912 here in California, and they deliberately removed partisanship from local offices. None of us can run with R's or D's on our name. And so I think the one thing I want to make sure, and I want to get a consensus from the rest of the council on this, this is important. Do we want to make sure that we don't want to raise partisan political flags in front of City Hall who raise and endorse candidates? I mean, does anybody think that's appropriate to have a Democratic flag or a Republican flag or the Tea Party flag? Does anybody think that's a bad? Anybody objecting to that? I don't see any objections. Okay, because that was the concern. The concern I primarily had was that we would start down a road where partisan groups would begin to use either pressure to get their flags, and then understand that this is, and Martin talked to us, this is us talking to the public. This is us representing to the public what we stand for. We stand for equity, we stand for inclusiveness, we stand for all the things that the Philly flag stands for, but we, as a group, should not put up somebody's partisan flag that stands for a particular point of view and say this represents the city. It doesn't. That gets settled at the ballot box every couple of years here in the city. And if everybody kind of agrees to that, that there are flags that are not appropriate if they're partisan in nature and political in nature that way, then I'm not concerned about it. But that's the area that I was most concerned about. I wanted to share. Sabina, you wanted to comment about flags from countries.
I wanted to comment about the general, we're overcomplicating the policy about putting in this is not allowed. We all agree. I think the policy, the way it's written right now, says very clearly that it is at the discretion of the council to decide which flag to bring in, and one of the council members will bring in. So I think we are overcomplicating by saying we won't allow this or we won't allow that, because 2 years later, we could come up with something else and say, we want to add this to the policy. So the way the policy is written, I actually agree with it without it saying, but. So that's what the point I was trying to make. I think we all agree that what should not be allowed. And as a council, our values will reflect what is allowed and what is not allowed. But no, I'm just saying, yeah.
You are absolutely right that we cannot commit a future council to any actions. Just like we can't budget out past our budget year and commit, aside from COPs and stuff, but you're absolutely right that another council could change the policy later on. But I think the clear expectation is to groups and to organizations that might come to the city. I don't want to create false expectations. And if the Tea Party comes in and wants to put a flag up, or another group on the progressive side that is very involved in politics wants to put a flag up in front of City Hall, we should be really clear up front. This is for flags that are very inclusive and speak for the city and the city's values. And so another future council can always change that. Dave, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I apologize, Phil. I'd never take phone calls, but my kids are doing the birthday wish stuff and I didn't. Anyway, I think
Happy
what we're
birthday.
talking about, Sabina just touched on it, that there is a policy in place. I think it works for the 3 flagpoles. I think if we turn people loose on diversity, inclusion, and equity, they will give us the information that we need to craft a new policy. You may see a 4th flagpole. That's not my idea. That actually came from Jackie. Actually, we both did. But I think it's important that touching on something Phil said, and we're actually going the next step for Courtney. It isn't that people didn't get it before this. It's that people get things at different times. And we have an opportunity now to help move it in that direction. There's going to be pushback from people. Not everybody feels the same way. But we brought this up for the first time at a council meeting, February of 2018. And I mentioned that we have to do an ethics course every 2 years, sexual harassment every 2 years, and I'm 99.9% sure you will be doing a course called Race Forward. I say this because I took it February of 2018. We're taking steps. Don't lose sight of this flag tonight. I think if one message came out of this, because you could have had 30 people speaking right now. Jackie condensed it to keep it simple. Raise the flag today, whether it's underneath or in place of the San Ramon flag, and then do a moratorium until people give you what they think. Then you can elaborate. But I'm telling you, if you do this diversity, inclusion, and equity, and you don't have the African-American community very representative, because their life is different than a lot of the others. They've had this for a long time. We're going to lose the opportunity. And I think Abram's a focal point on that. He doesn't know I'm saying this. If he's watching, and he's probably ticked off, but you need to do this. The time is now.
Well, Dave, not to undercut what you said, the diversity committee is led by an African-American, and they are a large part of that conversation. I've been involved in those meetings since we first began it 3 years ago. They are very well represented. And Mitchell Hobson actually has been the chair from the beginning, does a great job. Scott. You're on mute, Scott.
Yep, everything. I'm sorry, Sabina, but if a policy doesn't include at least some guidelines, so that when a outside group contacts the city, they go to the city clerk, they go to the city attorney, they go to the city manager and say, we'd like to raise our flag at City Hall, that staff can say, here's the policy. If you fit within these guidelines, please contact the mayor, and the mayor or one of the other council members will bring forward your request. But I think it's important to have those guidelines in explicitly stated. And so a policy that doesn't include those 4 items, no for-profit, no national flags, no political organizations, and no religious flags, I won't support a policy that doesn't at least outline those 4 things. But you know, so far as you know, we've lost Dave for now. I'm okay with doing some more work on this policy and raising the Philly flag this week and moving forward, and then working a little bit more on this policy. But we need to have something we can hand to those people and say, you know, if you aren't one of these 4 things, then we're good. We're good to discuss it. We can bring it to the council for further consideration.
Scott, one of the benefits of Zoom is for the first time I actually see Sabina's face and your face and Phil's face, and you get the reactions as we're having these conversations, which doesn't happen in a meeting.
No,
And
each other's shoulders if we see anything.
So I
You
don't want
just
to,
hear me groaning, Bill, that's all.
so I don't want to be presumptive, but as I was talking, I was watching faces, and I think there was a consensus about national flags. I think there was a consensus about religious flags. I think there was a consensus that we don't want to have for-profit flags. I think there was a consensus that we don't want to have those kinds of political partisan flags, because we are nonpartisans. And I think if that, with that policy direction, I don't see anybody objecting to that. Looking towards our city manager.
I have, Mayor. So I think we should still consider and look at other national flags. And the reason I bring it up is because we have multiple nationalities and other cities are already celebrating those heritage under the San Ramon umbrella, again, right, under their city flags and things like that. And I will certainly say that that is going to come up at some point. So I don't agree that we should put national flags under that umbrella, because we do have nationalities. What, we have 130 languages at Doherty Valley? Who knows? I mean, like I said, this is, again, other cities are putting up national flags to celebrate the heritage of the community that lives within their community. So for me, I would not, I would not want to put that as an exclusion. The rest, I agree with you.
Okay. Well, is there a motion to give some direction? Because Dave is gone.
Bill, could we maybe hear the comments from that were going to be read in? Would you mind?
Absolutely, but usually I like having a motion, so when they make their comments, they have some content. That's okay. They're all written comments. It doesn't matter. I stand corrected, Phil. Let's read the written comments. Thank you, Phil.
Sure.
So there, I've received 7 comments. The first one is from Noda. As a SRV USD teacher and a community member, I support the flying of the Pride flag every June at San Ramon City Hall. If it is true that we are all welcome here, then we need to show our support to our LGBTQ+ community. I am really becoming aware of how we have marginalized many groups in the US and want to be a part of the change. Thank you for having San Ramon lead the way and be the change that we want to see in the world. The next email is from Rita Chakrabarty. I support the flying of the Pride flag every June at San Ramon City Hall starting June 2020. Please see my signature on the letter sent on behalf of the LGBTQ+ community and allies. The next is from Kelly Gamble. I've been a resident of San Ramon for 40 years and a California high school graduate of the class of 1982. My husband and I have raised 4 boys here. We are property owners of multiple parcels. I can't explain how dismaying it was to read that San Ramon would even consider getting involved in all of the provocative and controversial issues surrounding us at the present time for the following reasons. The flagpole is for the American flag. Let's promote just that, America. If you want to raise a second flag to unify, let it relate to America, local geography, or a city of great schools flag, or something along those lines. Number 2, flying alternative flags is controversial and not everyone agrees to the appropriateness or wants to be lumped in, associated, or reminded. Some people don't believe it is appropriate for the local government to be so intimately involved in these matters. This should not be misinterpreted to mean anything negative about those subject matters. Number 3, the city does not need to impose upon its citizenry such provocative and emotional issues. Number 4, the city does not need to join in with the identity politics or political pandering. We know we are decent people. We don't need to prove it. Number 5, the subject matters of the proposed flags tend to separate and polarize, not unify. Black versus white, gay versus straight, etc. are all separation of people. We are all humans. Stop separating us into groups. This is the very catalyst for polarization. 6, this will open the door to a flag for every political issue, every group who believe they are oppressed. 7, the local government should stay out of these matters and focus on governing and not politicizing. Number 8, why would we spend time on money on this when money and time are supposedly in great shortage? Lastly, if this is the direction in which San Ramon is headed, it will drastically affect our continued residency in this city. The next is from Robin Taylor. I am a member of the San Ramon Valley chapter of Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, PFLAG. I strongly support the flying of the Pride flag. The next is from Sean Kumaji. I hope this letter finds you well. I wrote to you as a colleague and as an openly gay elected official, respectfully requesting that on June 17th, you support the members of the LGBTQ community by passing display of flags policy, allowing for a member of the City Council to request the flying of the Philadelphia LGBTQ Pride flag at City Hall as a commemorative flag in accordance with federal and state statutes. At my suggestion, Dublin considered a similar action last year. We were instructed by our attorney that we did not need to have a flag policy in order to exercise our right to government speech, including flying a flag on our city flagpole. However, out of an abundance of caution, we passed a flag policy which clearly declared that city flagpoles are not intended to serve as a forum for free expression of the public. When a government agency raises the pride flag, elected officials are exercising their government speech. As elected representatives, we get to decide how we exercise that government speech, and we should do it in a way that uplifts the most vulnerable and marginalized amongst us, like the LGBTQ community. Flying the pride flag sends a clear message to your residents that your city embraces the unique contributions of LGBTQ members and that you recognize the hardships they have faced and continue to face. For evidence of the importance of this action, I encourage you to read Horizon Foundation's report entitled San Francisco Bay Area LGBTQ Community Needs Assessment 2018. The report clearly illustrates the depth and the nature of the needs of our LGBTQ community. It states in part, LGBTQ community members across all Bay Area counties, income and education levels, racial identities, sexual orientations, gender identities, and ages report feeling unsafe in living in their daily lives and have unmet needs for critical services in the past 3 years. Declaration of inclusion and acceptance are an important first step. In addition to approving this proclamation and raising the rainbow flag, I also ask that you find services that meet the many unmet needs of your LGBTQ populations and implement funding sources for those services. I look forward to hearing about the outcome of your decision and hope to see the LGBTQ pride flag as I drive from Dublin to my place of employment in San Ramon. The next is from Allison Gardner, representing PFLAG. Dear San Ramon City Council, during certain times, we look forward to symbols of belonging. We seek, as my friend termed, a visual sanctuary, a beacon of hope that lets us know we are where we are supposed to be. During Pride Month of June, those of us connected with LGBTQ plus community look for our rainbow. When so many messages in our world say we should not be who we are, we constantly look for signs of acceptance. This flag is our symbol of hope, recognition, and safety, that we are wanted and welcome here. As the days tick by in June, we quietly wonder, is our flag flying? Do we see the colors that represent we are welcome? Is the rainbow anywhere to be found? Please adopt the flag policy presented today. Use the use of city flags and display a flag policy commemorative 2020. And please hang the Philly Pride flag tomorrow and throughout the remainder of June and during the month of June in perpetuity under the city flag on the City Hall flagpole. This symbol will show the LGBTQ plus community we belong here. Please make this visual statement to begin to show support of our diversity, to clearly state our city welcomes all colors, all cultures, and all people to live, work, and find purpose in San Ramon, California. Sincerely, the members and allies of the LGBTQ plus community of San Ramon, and it has the names of 195 residents and allies of the LGBTQ plus community of San Ramon. And the last one is from Shalaja Dixit. I'm writing to urge our city council to please fly the Philly Pride flag on the official city flagpole in San Ramon to celebrate June as Pride Month. Our sister city of Danville just raised their Pride flag this morning. Our other sister cities of Livermore and Dublin have already done the same. A flag gives everyone in the community a clear message on the values and goals that the city intends to work towards. It is not just a message of comfort for those within the LGBTQ plus community, but also a clear message to the city at large that San Ramon will not tolerate any form of bigotry or prejudice. Let us all stand visibly united in our commitment to build an inclusive and welcoming community. I hope to see tomorrow's sunrise on the rainbow in San Ramon.
That's the end of public comment. So I'll close the public comment. I know Dave's not here, but Dave expressed his point of view. I tried to summarize before, and Phil reminded me about the public comment completion, that I heard from us that with one exception, Sabina, who wants to consider perhaps national flags, but my thought is I couldn't support a policy that allow national flags, maybe somewhere else, especially if we have a sister city, sister country, and there's a special flagpole for that. We can arrange for things, but those three flags in front are pretty special. I think it's the reason why we think this is a pretty special thing to do. Aside from that, I'm okay as long as we keep it and don't allow organizations that are politically and partisan to be able to be in front. Aside from that, I'm okay. Seeing one dissension with Sabina about countries, I think otherwise, I think we're all on the same page. Am I wrong?
Oh, I think you're right.
Okay.
This stuff, these things evolve. I don't know if the rest of you, I was certainly stunned by the 6-3, pleasantly stunned by the 6-3 vote by the Supreme Court on Monday.
Yes.
And what I appreciated about a couple of the comments, and the fact that it was Trump's first appointee was saying, look, this is about sex, right? He went back to the actual, he read the law. And it was a very interesting thing. And we had Justice Alito come in and say, well, that wasn't the intention in 1964. Well, that wasn't the intention in, 1787, to have anyone other than white men of property to be able to vote. So, to reach back always is a mistake. To respect the past is important, but we can't live in it. I'm saddened that somebody threatens to leave town over something like this, but I think that actually proves the point of why we need to talk about it and why we need to continue to talk about it. The reality is that some people will be upset about it. Well, that's their right. But I would suggest that we have the not-for-profits, the no religious flags, the no political flags, political organization flags, and if you don't mind, Sabina, hearing from the diversity committee their opinion on the national flags thing, and as a point, and with that we might come back and say and get further input on that rather than saying yes or no. With Dave not being here, I'd prefer this to be all four of us and going the same way. It doesn't. Well, Dave's not here. That's all I'm saying. But if you don't mind, Sabina, would that be okay if we just kind of left that one alone for the moment and then got input as Dave suggested from the greater public, if you will?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Great. I see nodding head. Scott has his hand up.
Before we leave that, I find the issue, it's dividing us, of national flags could be very divisive in this community. Just this week, Indian troops and Chinese troops fought at the border, at their disputed border. And at least 20 Indian troops were killed. An unknown number of Chinese troops were killed. We have very large populations in San Ramon of both Indians and Chinese. To fly either one of their flags could inflame emotions in those two groups. The Irish and the English, to fly their flags, once again, could inflame those issues needlessly.
I think was a consensus we're not going to go that direction now.
I just want to make the case that I don't find that those flags are unifying in their nature. And we're looking for ways to help people recognize diversity as a positive. And so those kinds of flags, I think, could be divisive instead of unifying. We can find other ways. We have our whole, we may not have it this year, but the cultural fair is a great opportunity for those communities to promote their cultures and get people to understand them better. But I don't find flying their flags on those 3 poles as government speech for the council is a positive action.
Sabina.
I mean, I just wanted to say, right, the perspective that I bring here, born in another country, lived here 25 years, I'm an American Pakistani, right? I can't separate those roots. I am who I am. And the thing is, we are all Americans, San Ramonians first, and then we embrace the culture that is. And that subculture is not going to go anywhere. And if I don't stand up for my Indian friends, my Chinese friends, and things like that, and I say, oh, why did you, I fight, why did you fly flag of another country? We have to put on a hat of Americans with subcultures who may be celebrating something, right? Or there may be a tragedy somewhere for all we know, right? And we want to recognize and we want to stand with that nation, that there's a tragedy that struck your nation and we stand with you. Again, it is at the discretion of the council, like, the council member, according to our policy, a council member has to bring it up. The rest of the council has to agree with it for us to even move that forward. But I agree, we take it to the diversity committee, we have them look at it and give us back their opinion, because that's, what their charter is as well, to educate us on what the diverse community of San Ramon thinks. So I just want to bring that up, because I think embracing that allows us a way to be the global community that we are. We are a very, very international city. And although I understand where you're coming from, that there might be in a fight, somebody saying, oh, this attack was actually initiated by the other country and actually this country's in the right. But, those are discussions we can certainly have. So I hear your concerns as well, but I also want to give you a perspective of, how it does make people feel inclusive, especially as first-generation immigrants who made San Ramon their home, but do, come from another culture, and we should celebrate all of them. I think the best thing as a council that I've enjoyed and all of you enjoy is the exposure to all the cultures we do get because of our position, the religious events, the multicultural events, the food and everything. If I wasn't on council, I don't think I would be exposed to what I get exposed to. And living in San Ramon, I don't think anybody gets, has tried all the different foods that if you were living in a single kind of non-multicultural community, if you will. So I think we should leave that open for discussion and look to the diversity committee to bring
Great.
that.
Joe, I think there's some pretty clear direction. I'll speak for Dave. I think all 5 of us appear to be on the same page when it comes to the policy, that you're going to come back to us with something more in writing with the things we've outlined. Does anybody think we've been unclear with our direction? Phil, I see nodding heads. Okay.
And just if we could also make a point of raising the flag, the Philly Pride flag tomorrow, I would like to have us explicitly give the direction for that.
As long as they supply the flag and it meets size constraints that's about the same size as the San Ramon flag. I don't want the city to have to be responsible to go out and get just the right flag. Organizations should bring their flag in. Don't you agree?
That's a process thing. I'm fine with that. Go ahead, Martin.
So since we're talking about process, can we just get 2 motions, one for a minute order for raising the flag, and then the second would be would you want to continue to a date certain, which would save staff the having to renotice the policy, or we could continue to a date uncertain, and then we would be noticing the policy item one more time.
Phil?
If I can jump in real quick, a date certain may be difficult if we are going to include the diversity coalition. It's not a committee of the city. Right. It's a coalition, a grassroots coalition. And so the challenge would be to align those. And just one extra statement, as I've heard the council deliberate and speak. I think it's important for the community to understand that the delay on this is no council member's fault. This was scheduled to take place at the policy committee meeting in March, and then something happened in March, which we all know, which was a pandemic, which literally caused all sorts of things to become stopped and slowed down. So that rests squarely on me and not on any council member. And so I felt it important that the public understand that.
Don't take the heat, Joe. It's on us.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we direct city manager to have a Philly Pride flag as supplied by appropriate organization flown tomorrow for the rest of the month in honor of Pride Month.
If I could interrupt that, I apologize, but one of the caveats that I talked about and I touched on was that we keep the flagpoles as government speech, and
Yes.
as such, the city should pay for their own flags and acquire their own flags for that purpose.
Okay, well, maybe we can buy it from them, but
Okay.
at an appropriate price.
I'll
I don't want the
rephrase my-
low bid flag, just so you know, Joe.
All right, all right. I see a motion with the appropriate changes there.
And I was a little confused. Are we also considering the two policies? What are we doing? We're just taking
Yeah,
that.
but that's the next step in this, I think.
Different motion.
Okay, it's
Separate
been,
motion,
it's,
minute
okay,
order.
it's,
I'll second.
okay, it's been moved, it's been seconded. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Hudson is absent. Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Hudson absent.
Okay, the next would be, I think, policy direction
You wanna make a
based on this discussion.
Go ahead, Scott.
I move that we ask the diversity, is it diversity committee or diversity coalition?
Coalition.
Diversity coalition to provide input on a city flagpole policy and return that recommendation to a council meeting in the future.
I can second that.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Is that
Seeing
complete?
no,
Phil?
say
Phil?
again, Scott?
Phil, do you believe that's complete enough for the purpose? Okay.
Good. Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, vote.
Councilmember Hudson is absent. Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Hudson absent.
Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 4, adjournment.
There are
Thank you,
motions?
everybody. Joe,
Thank
thanks
you.
for putting this together quickly. Once it got rolling, and thanks to fellow council members. Miss you folks.
All right.
Have a good evening.
I can tell, Phil.
It's been moved. All those in favor signify by clicking